We will call to order the meeting of August 2nd and let the record show that we have 4 commissioners present for the meeting. I think that we have a couple of items that we're going to change on the agenda. Do you want to help us with that, Mr. Kessel?
Certainly. This evening, we'd like to make 2 agenda changes. The first is the addition of a 5:20 timetable agenda item to allow Chris Fear from Best Friends Mentoring to present on her program and the potential subsidy. She was unable to make our subsidy meeting that was held previously.
Okay.
We'd also like to eliminate 4B under General Issues and Finance, the real estate purchase agreement. You could see to it to just eliminate that from the agenda. We'd appreciate that as well.
Anybody have any other items that we need to look at on the agenda? If not, we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
And second?
Seconded.
Any discussion on the agenda? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed. The agenda is approved as amended. Consent agenda. You all had a chance to look at the consent agenda. Any items there that you'd like to discuss individually?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to approve the consent agenda.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans,
Aye.
Mr. Landblum.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That motion carries. The consent agenda. I think that rather than trying to get into the regular agenda, Mrs. Fear, if you're ready, we're a couple minutes early. Would you mind?
Thank you, Mr. Jackson and Commissioners. Thanks for taking the time tonight to hear a little bit about your Best Friends program and just to consider our request for 2011. And I just want to let you know I've got a couple of our board members here, so if you have questions of me or of them, I just have a couple of brief comments. And I think you also have a packet of information from me, too? Okay. As you may recall, Best Friends received a 3-year grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and that funding runs out September 30th of 2010. That grant enabled our program to provide volunteer mentors to about 200 school-age kids per year. Our mentors provided social skills training, companionship, role modeling, homework assistance, tutoring, and friendship to these children in our community. Best Friends serves youth who may be at risk for a variety of factors in their lives. Just a couple statistics I have from last year, our last school year. 42% of the kids in our program lived in single-parent homes. That's double the average of kids in North Dakota and almost triple the average of all kids in Stark County. 68% of the kids in our program qualified for free and reduced meals, which you know is a poverty indicator. That's more than double the rate of all children in Stark County and in the state of North Dakota. 45% were below proficiency in reading when they started in our program. 48% were below proficiency in math when they started in our program. And 13% were of an ethnic minority, which is triple the minority rate of Stark County. So these are some factors that indicate youth at risk, and at risk of perhaps delinquency, perhaps becoming a victim of crime, a perpetrator of crime, and educational challenges such as not graduating from high school. National and our local statistics show us that when youth are supported by a mentor, these risk factors are lessened, and when youth don't graduate from high school, they earn less money, and they are 8 times more likely to end up in prison. Mentoring helps to prevent these youth from becoming statistics. Last year, here's some good news, 89% of the youth enrolled in our program improved their academic competency, and more than 90% improved their attitudes, behaviors, and social skills. Those are some short-term results, and those are pretty impressive. Here's a long-term result. In May, I went to high school graduation ceremonies here in Dickinson. I counted at least 15 former program youth who walked across the stage. They actually graduated. Now, those kids, for more than half of those kids, their teachers back in elementary school had predicted that they would not graduate, that they would drop out, unless there was some sort of intervention in their lives. So that was pretty cool. During the past year, we've seen a large increase in requests for mentors. We are also observing a large percentage of that increase coming from families who are new to our area. They're searching for work. They're working several jobs, perhaps. And those families may be homeless. Many families, we are noticing, have social skills challenges. The stress of moving and those economic concerns are showing in their children. Because of the national recession, funding for social programs such as mentoring have been rearranged, and in some cases, they've been totally discontinued. Much of the funding for mentoring is now reallocated to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, where large grants have been awarded to national mentoring programs who are expected to form partnerships and sub-grant funds to local organizations. So, at the time that we are seeing an increased demand for services, we're also experiencing a loss in funding. We have formed 2 partnerships with North Dakota State University. One is through a national grant for statewide mentoring, and we received 2 positions that are 18 hours each that we do not have to pay for, and that's a 0.9 FTE, so that's great news for our program. And those people are charged with recruiting, training, and managing a lot of our matches. The other partnership we have through NDSU is through the VISTA program, through the Corporation for National and Community Service, and that provides 1 FTE for program support. So we're continuing to apply for grants and to conduct special fundraising events that all of you, I'm sure, have been informed of, because you're all on our mailing list, so you know what we're doing. We're dealing with a coming budget shortfall of about $60,000. We've made preliminary cuts in our budget totaling about $45,000 for 2011. That includes cutting 1.75 FTEs, includes cutting office hours, and cutting our secretarial support. Those are just preliminary. So we're requesting a city investment in our youth of $3,000 to $5,000 to ensure that our mentoring services can continue and that we can prevent some of the economic and educational challenges that the youth in our program would face. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Sphere?
Just a comment, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to appreciate the work that you guys do and your board and so on. I had the opportunity to be a mentor a few years ago, and it was a good experience for me, and I hope it was for the young boy also. But it's a good program. They're doing a fine job over there, and it's just one of our successes we have in Dickinson. And
Yeah, thank you.
continue with that.
The only question I would have, the request is $3,000 to $5,000, and you didn't receive city funds last year. I think this is the first year you requested.
In 2006, we requested funds as well because we had a coming shortfall, and we did have a shortfall that we dealt with for about 4 months, and then one of our grants came in, so we had sort of a little time where we cut back, and then when one of the grants came in, which was the one I just talked about, we were able to do some funding.
Okay.
So I haven't come back to request anything, because if we don't need it, I don't want to request it. And this time we really do need it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? You probably know, we have a number of requests before us. Our first probably heavy budget meeting is August 16th, I believe. We're having a special meeting. And this will be on that docket, along with many others.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and feel free to give us a call anytime at our office if you have questions or comments or suggestions. We certainly do appreciate that feedback as well.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move to the non-timetable agenda, item number 4A, Southwest Regional Grant Applications. Mr. Kessel, are you going to introduce that for us and summarize what happened there?
I will, Chairman Jackson. The committee that looks at the Southwest Regional Grant Program met. That committee is made up of Commissioner Steiner, Commissioner Jackson, and myself. We reviewed the requested amounts of $156,000 from a variety of cities in and around southwest North Dakota. Based upon the dollars awarded, we obviously were not able to grant everybody's request, but we are suggesting grants in the amount of $27,200. They are listed for you, and I would just like to say that when the committee looked at making these awards or these requests, it was a very difficult decision, obviously, with that amount of need out there. We did look at certain priorities. We tried to award things because of the original intent was to try to disperse dollars from the sales tax funds to outside of Dickinson. So that was one of the things that we looked for, is communities that were outside or agencies that were outside of Dickinson. We also looked hard at bricks and mortar or equipment needs, as opposed to operational costs that would potentially perpetuate an issue ongoing. And then we looked at emergency management or things related to emergency management as a priority. There were a few others, but those were the main ones. And based upon those priorities, we are suggesting the City of Dickinson award $27,200 in the amounts listed in your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. You may have said it, but these dollars come from the 1% of the sales tax, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions from any commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, how much money was available?
We awarded almost everything that was available. I think there was 29, I believe just around 29,000. So.
And just an update on that, it's awarded, and we send them the check after they send us proof of their project.
Thank you, Commissioner Steiner. That is accurate. We are reimbursement for these requests, so they incur the expense and then prove that expense through the use of receipts or others, and then we pay off of those receipts.
And some of them have not completed, therefore they will only receive a certain amount.
Correct.
In prior years.
Mr. Kessel, what happens with the $1,800 that's left over in the budget?
The amount that remains can be used for ensuing years. We were a little careful, probably partly because of the large tax reimbursement we had to make that did affect other grant programs to the elderly and such that we made earlier. So I think there was a little bit of reservation there. Plus, in making these awards, we wanted to try to be somewhat equal amongst all of the cities and communities that were represented. So the choice among the group was simply to allow that balance to go to the following year.
Okay.
If there's no other discussion, we'll need a motion.
Move to approve the regional grant program.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Landblum, any more discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion carries. We're close enough to 5:30. We have a public hearing scheduled for our ongoing discussion about the issuance of another liquor license. I think the public is probably aware that for the past several weeks we've been discussing that possibility of issuing another liquor license, and there are really two issues. One being whether or not we issue the license itself, and then secondly, if we do issue the license, how do we go about that? What's the process? We've looked at some possible ordinance changes, and I think what we should do is have Mr. Kessel and Mr. Kohling, between them, maybe summarize what our present ordinance says, and then briefly what our options are in changing the ordinance. Which one of you Mr. Coley?
Yes, Mr. Jackson, Commissioners, to review the current ordinance. Current ordinance provides that as of the date that the ordinance was enacted, 1995, there were a certain number of on-off sale licenses within the city, and that the city's population at that time was estimated at about 15,000 people. The ordinance provides that when the city reaches an estimated 18,000 people, that the city commission has the discretion to award a new on-off sale license. There's no provision in city ordinance, in current city ordinance, for how that license would be administered, or how it would be issued, rather. And it remains at your discretion whether or not you choose to issue that license. That's a matter for your judgment as city commissioners. That limitation does not affect the other classes of licenses. There are, I believe, 8 or 9 classes of licenses within the city. The numerical limitation only applies to the on-off sale license. It doesn't apply to restaurant licenses or beer and wine licenses or those sorts of things. There are a couple of options that you have at this point. Excuse me. We discussed some of those at the last meeting, and I believe they were emailed to you and provided for you for tonight's meeting for how you want to go about the process of issuing a new license if you choose to do so. The range of possibilities is essentially endless on this. You have plenary discretion as a city commission to decide how you want to do it. The options that we have discussed at this point are to allow for a bidding procedure where parties would submit sealed bids and then have the opportunity to essentially auction off the license to the highest bidder. There's a possibility you could issue it by a request for proposal process where parties would submit essentially their business plan, and you could decide among those plans or those proposals what you believe is in the best interest of the city. There's also the option of creating a new class of license where the party who would obtain the license would pay a fee to the city, and that license would then be non-transferable and would revert back to the city if the business should end up closing at some point. The other point I should mention about our existing ordinance is there's a special provision for the business that is now the Evil Olive. That property was annexed into city limits after that numerical limitation was first established, and that on-off sale license was essentially grandfathered into the city and allowed to operate, even though we would have an on-off sale license in excess of the 15 that were provided for by ordinance. The options that we have put before you and emailed out to you earlier do provide for the normalization of that license, that a license for that business would operate as a normal on-off sale license and be transferable to any other location in town. In your packet as well is a proposed ordinance and resolution regarding the fees that the City of Dickinson currently charges for liquor licenses. Mr. Kessel has mentioned in previous meetings our license fees have not been increased for some time, and compared to our sister cities or comparable cities around North Dakota, our current fees are somewhat lower than we see around other cities around the state. So the ordinance and resolution before you would provide for a modest increase in the annual renewal fees and issuance fee and transfer fee that the city currently provides for.
And Mr. Coley, just for clarification, our current ordinance does not say that we must issue another license. It says we may.
That's correct.
At the 18,000. Okay.
Correct.
Mr. Kessel, anything else?
I'd just like to add, there's been some questions about the amount of licenses that the city issues, and we did go back quite a few years to determine whether or not there's been an increase in the number of licenses, and actually the number has stayed very stagnant. Every time that a license is issued, it's usually transferred. So we've had several transfers. When one business goes out of business, it's transferred to another. That happens quite frequently. We have had a couple of lodge licenses that were not renewed, but we did issue new restaurant licenses that took their place. So I was a little surprised to find out that the number of licenses actually issued in the community has stayed pretty even for quite some time.
Thank you. with that, we want to open the public hearing, and we're going to do at least one more of these after tonight. You know, we hope to hear from current license holders, of course, but we want to hear from the public, too, as to what the thoughts might be about the whole question of liquor license. So with that, we'll open the hearing. Anybody who'd like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name, and we'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Who would like to begin?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Al Kramer. I'm the current owner of Classic Lanes for the past 32 years. One of the things I want to state for the record is back in 1991, we came before this commission and we did apply for a full liquor license. We were denied at that time, stating that there was not one available. So at that time, we applied for a beer and wine license, and we received one at that time. And we're currently operating as a beer and wine, with a beer and wine license for the past 19 years. However, I want to make it aware that we have been interested in updating ever since, and we still are interested in updating to a full liquor. Classic Lanes has been a business in Dickinson for the past 50 years. We've been paying taxes in Dickinson for the past 50 years. It's under the same management for the past 32 years. And we have had a liquor license, our beer license, excuse me, beer and wine license in place for the past 19 years. And to my knowledge, I believe we've had no violations on that license to date. To me, that just seems, with those credentials, I believe that we earned and should have some kind of a preference point system over a new business that's coming into town and wants to have a full liquor license. If you look around, I don't care if you drive around the state, you can drive around the country, upper Midwest, wherever. Bowling centers and bars pretty much go hand in hand. I don't know if you could find one of 12 lanes or more, wherever you go, that does not have a full liquor license with their establishment. It's just something that we feel we need to have to, our customers deserve it, and we feel that we want to give them that service. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against any growth in the city. As a businessman, I'm not against growth, but I do believe that we need to look at some of our existing businesses before and satisfy some of their needs before you branch out and expand. As far as the fees, I'm not against paying a set fee as long as it's fair and can be able to be in competition with the other liquor licenses in town. In other words, if this liquor license has such a high fee and yet a restaurant on the same line as like Applebee's, for instance, can come into town with unlimited numbers, they can come in and buy a license for, I don't know what that restaurant license is. Is it $1,500 or $1,800? I'm not sure, Mr. Kess, somewhere there.
You're about right. Yeah.
Okay, so they can come in for $1,800, unlimited numbers of restaurants can come in saying that they're serving food and half of their receipts are food. They can come in and do the same, pretty much the same, other than off-sale probably, as what any full liquor license can do in town. So we need to have some kind of a protection there. And also, if they can come in for $18, how much can you charge, or $1,800, how much can you charge the new business that would be coming in to get a full liquor license and compete on the same level? I mean, so that has to be taken into consideration also. So I just want to let it known that, you know, we kind of sat by the wayside patiently, and we're waiting for a liquor license to be available. And if there is one, we just want to let you know that we're definitely interested, and we feel that it wouldn't be fair for us to be looked at as the same level as a new business that you know nothing about, and we've got a past history, and you can, you know, and it's there. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and if anybody's got any questions, I can answer them for you at this time.
I have one, and I appreciate your comments. Do you have any opinion, Mr. Kramer, about if we do issue the license, how it should be done? Should it be a set price? Should it be a bid kind of thing?
Well, I don't think it should be a bid thing because, as I just stated, we've been wanting one for 20 years, or 1991, and I mean, we just want to update. We got a beer and wine in operation as of now. We'd like to update the full liquor, and I don't know. I think it should be on a first come first served basis. I mean, we wanted one, we couldn't get one. We still want one, and Why can't we get one?
Okay, thank you. Any
Yep.
other questions for Mr. Kramer? Thanks very much.
Oh, thanks for your time.
Appreciate your comments. More comments?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm not up here to say very much other than I am for the liquor license to be added. I'm caught in the middle of situations with liquor license bought from the past because I came to the city first. I didn't call everyone I know, and I didn't form an entourage. I'm coming to the commission to really take into consideration the different options. Number one, the bidding process. I guess my main concern is I'm tired of hearing in the town of Dickinson that if she can build a building as big as she wants to, why can't she afford a $100,000 liquor license? Well, to answer this question, it's none of anybody's business and the hows and whys. And second, it should not even be an issue. The liquor license is determined by population base, not what's in my bank. Also with the bidding process, and this goes to everyone, realize if I get the bid, that's one person building and using the liquor license for something we really don't have in the town, or one person to compete against. If I don't get the bid and some big corporation does, do you think about what will happen to the people that rely on their liquor license for income? If Walmart, Captain Jack's, even Bucks come back into our town, do half of you think you can compete with the business and prices? City Commissioners, you're getting tax money from all these liquor establishments. Realize if you only got tax money from one because a lot had to close down. What would that look like for the surrounding cities and people about the city of Dickinson? This city and surrounding communities were built and thrive on the concepts of private ownership and free trade. And last but not least, I also want to say, through this whole process, I have respected each bar owner and liquor license owner. All I want is a liquor license. I love the city of Dickinson, born and raised. I'm not here to bash, complain, cry, or yell. I just want a liquor license for its face value and to start a dream in the town I love. Thank you.
Ms. Riddle, just for the record, could you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jane Riddle.
Any questions for Ms. Riddle? Appreciate your thoughts. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Walt Smith with Cattermas, Lee and Jackson. Good evening, Commissioners. Just a quick comment. I deal with all kinds of developers coming into town nowadays, and I had one just yesterday looking to bring another client into town or a business into town, and his first question to me was, do you know if there's any liquor licenses available in town? So just let you know that not only is everybody in town looking for one, but there's people coming from out of town looking for them as well. So thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Tracy Tews with TH Investments and representing Liquor Warehouse and Southview Liquors. I just put together a little spreadsheet that I gave to Mr. Kessel prior to the meeting. My first thing that I used for a data source was the U.S. Census done in 2000. The second one I used was the Attorney General's office, and it was current as of July 23rd. In the fifth column, if you'd notice, what I did is I broke down the city census population for these 10 cities for the number of liquor licenses per person, per capita. If you notice, Dickinson ranks number 3 in North Dakota, which means that we have approximately 470 people per liquor license, per liquor establishment in Dickinson. We have 34 registered liquor establishments in Dickinson right now. If we add the Evil Olive that's been the talk, that's 35. If you also notice, in the third line, 30% of our population in Dickinson is 18 years and younger when the census was done. Not 21, 18. So that takes the population for every liquor establishment down to 325 people per liquor establishment in Dickinson that we can serve. If you add the Evil Olive, it would take it to where your predecessor said at 18,000 was the population increase. The Evil Olive would be your 18,000 mark, and that would be your additional liquor license. And I don't think any of the long-standing businesses would disagree with the Evil Olive coming in. They've competed with the Queen City and the Evil Olive. That's the 35th establishment. 1 week ago, 9 liquor license holders met, and we discussed the proposed ordinances. And it was brought to our attention at that meeting that there's actually 4 establishments in Dickinson for sale that have full liquor licenses. 2 of them are listed liquor establishments with brokers. One of them, the sale was pending and fell through due to financing. So there is liquor licenses, and there are liquor licenses available. As TH Investments, feeling the way we feel, if we add an additional liquor license, and it should be within a redraft ordinance that is a public bid process that has no right of rejection, which means unless it's outside the confines, unless you find something that's outside of the state or federal guidelines, issue the license if it's on a bid process. That means don't limit it to 2 stores. It's unlimited. It's unlimited to any business. And that's what a bid process should be. It should not be a discretionary process of certain people. That's the only way you're going to get a fair market value of what that license is. In 2005, this commission chose to limit those licenses again when TH Investments came up and asked to hold more than 2 licenses. And it was said that we could redraft the ordinance, and in fact, if we redrafted the ordinance, it would devalue the other 34 businesses. That was in 2005. So if we redraft the ordinance, now, is it not going to devalue the 34 businesses? And right now, there's 2 building permits issued in the city of Dickinson that are going to have food and beverage licenses. So not only with the Evil Olive is that going to be 34, but it's going to be 36 and soon to be 37. I ask that this board considers that, yes, it's time to redraft an ordinance and to plan for future growth and expansion, but not to devalue our 34 investments. We already pay local sales tax, property tax, and a pretty stern hospitality tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tooze. Questions?
Just one. These statistics or numbers that you gave us here, you base the number of people per issued license on the total number of liquor licenses. Do you have what the numbers would be if you use, like, we're talking on-off sale license here. Do you know what those numbers would reflect if we use 16 or 17 for the population, and how the other cities would stack up? If we use
16 or 17 on the, how they'd stack up, Dickinson would actually be lower. It would rank number 2.
How many does Fargo have? They got 154 total licenses. Do we know how many on-off they have and what that would do to their number?
I do have it here. I could count them.
It'd be interesting to get those numbers and see, because we're talking about an on-off sale liquor license.
Exactly.
So let's
Dickinson would slide down the rank, though, Mr. Steiner, if we used that on-off sale on what I looked at. But I don't, as a liquor store owner, you can't tell me on Super Bowl Sunday that people aren't going to go sit at Sanford's rather than Army's or the Paragon or Champs.
I think that would be some numbers that I'd want to see also, just to look at. With your position on this here, would you be opposed to Mr. Kramer being updated to?
Absolutely not. They've been a long-standing business in Dickinson for 19 years. They've proven that they are within the confines of of what it takes to hold your license and be a license holder. But I don't believe that Mr. Kramer should go from a beer and wine to a full on-off sale just automatically without a fee basis. There's been a fee basis paid for on-off and sale-based liquor licenses of the City of Dickinson's license, but we've paid that fee. And in 2005, when I brought that request to the commission, that was exactly the question we were asking. Why can't we add it just for the fee basis? And I said, well, that's the way it's been since 1979 for on-off sale licenses. That's the way it's always going to be.
Was population brought up at that meeting?
Population was discussed, and the Evil Olive was discussed. And Armies and Budget Liquors was discussed because they were in separate structures.
I remember somewhat of that meeting, but
When you're looking at the bidding process, are you thinking that there should be a minimum bid, or how would you open up the bidding process?
A bid process is a bid process.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody could come in with a $10,000 bid. Somebody could come in with a $200,000 bid. The corporate liquor stores have been here. The corporate bars have been here. My whole point of this, Mr. Oltman, is not to say that it should be a bidding process 100%. My whole point of this conversation is that we have enough liquor establishments in Dickinson. We're number 3 in the state, behind other struggling cities like Williston and Minot that have population increases and growth. What's going to happen in 5 years? 2 long-standing businesses that have been here for 20 years, when we see a slide of 4,000 or 5,000 people, and people have investments.
Thanks.
Suze, I'm missing something. You've said a couple times we're number 3 in the state. By what measure? Which?
We're number 3 on the totem pole for the lowest number of capita per liquor sales establishments. So we have 470 behind Williston and Minot,
Thank you.
and Williston being the lowest at 329.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one, Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Tews, how did you come up with the 34, the number of licenses issued in Dickinson?
Right from the Attorney General's register.
I'm not sure that that reflects our records of how many issues are, or how many licenses are issued. I believe we're at 31. And if we take 31 and divide that by 18,000, assuming that's the population that we have in order to issue another license, we would be at 580. First, I commend you on this. I like this method of measurement. It's a good tool. If we do issue a second, or excuse me, another license, we'd be at 32 issued, again divided by 18,000, that would raise us to 562 and a half. And if the number is simply accurate at 31, assuming that census population that you've used from 2000, I believe the number to be 516.
Okay.
So-
On the register of the Attorney General from July 23rd, when myself and another liquor license holder look through it, every one of them are active.
Okay.
And 2 are missing because they're actually in Stark County, which would be the 19th hole, and the Evil Olive.
Okay.
But I guess we're kind of not counting the 19th hole because it's a city property.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just one more comment. I think I know where that could be off on. As far as the state's concerned, we're registered as a state as having a liquor license also. We have to license through the state as having a beer and liquor. But through the city, we're not. So I'm thinking maybe if you get it on the state level, we're showing as a liquor establishment on there already. And I'm thinking that might be where the discrepancies might.
Well, in order to get to the 31 or 34, that includes all the license classes that we have in the city of Dickinson, so I believe you are included.
Okay.
We only have 15 on and off sale license issued, the 16th being Evil Olive, so it's got to include all of them.
Would anybody else like to comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jason Frederick. I'm representing D&J Liquors, Inc., which is Liquid Assets. We obtained our license, I believe, in 2004. I believe we were the last bar to build a new facility in Dickinson at that time. I think we started construction in 2004 and opened in May 2005. At that time also, we inquired with the city about receiving an additional license to open a liquor store slash bar. And we were told that there was none available at that time. So, and we were told at that time that, you know, the best option for you would be to look around for somebody that's trying to sell theirs. And that's the approach that we ended up taking. I'm not afraid to tell you, in 2004, we paid $125,000 for that license. I mean, it's really not ours. I mean, that was the blue sky we paid. I believe that license became available when Bar Bucks closed, and then it was sold to Broncos for a while, and they ran a little liquor store out of the Bar Bucks building and decided to not get into the liquor store business. That's how we obtained it. So the question is, what are they worth, or how we would like to see another one issued? For one, I think we all agree on that restaurants with bars are more like bars with restaurants going forward. You've got the Buffalo Wild Wings, you've got Buffalo Rings and Rings. They've all got separate areas that are strictly bars with big screen TVs, and they're going after that bar crowd. They do serve food. We do not serve any food other than some, you know, bar pizzas or whatever. They're unlimited. Every time one of those new businesses opens, it takes a piece of our pie also. I'm not saying that we don't want to see it. We just opened a restaurant too. I'm part of the Pizza Ranch chain. We do have a beer and wine license. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that if there is another license issued, I think we need to have a fair and equitable way for these previous people that went and spent $100,000 or $200,000 to obtain their license to open their business. I don't think issuing it for a basic fee is a fair way to do it. I think a bid is a fair way, as long as it's an open bid. And, you know, I would prefer a minimum bid, but, I mean, that's up to you guys, I guess. We, at that time, factored that into the building of our business, the $125,000. We would have sure liked to get one for $2,400, but it didn't, I mean, at that time, it didn't play out. So I guess all I'm asking is that you guys reconsider. I mean, I read the ordinance as well as you guys have read it. If there is room for an additional license, I believe Evil Olive has the first opportunity, since they've been grandfathered in for how many years, and it's not been counted against the total licenses. So if we ever are truly at 18,000 until we see the census, I believe that they have the right to it. If we do go forward and issue an additional license, I would like to see some kind of bid process where, you know, other people have a chance to bid on it, and you know, it gives its inherent value to everybody, you know, whatever it sells for. Thank you.
Do you have in mind a minimum for, you talked about a minimum a little bit.
I mean, I think, of course, I'd like to protect what I paid, so in that 100,000 range would be a fair minimum, I think.
To start the bid?
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Colling, with the state of North Dakota, you bring up the receipts of the food business and so on.
Yes.
Do they have to file the receipts with the state of North Dakota on a percentage basis of what they sell in liquor and what they have in food? Is that attainable?
I believe they do, and I believe that's attainable, but they have to have at least 50% of their total gross receipts be food in order to qualify as a restaurant.
If we can, that would be interesting to get, if it's public information, I think that's information that we could use also. Because you talk about more liquor sales than food, well, if that's the case, then...
I mean, is that a state requirement, though? That 50%, or is that a city requirement? I don't think that's a state requirement.
No. What I'm saying is,
The 50% they have to sell the food.
what I'm saying is, do they have to report their percentage of liquor and food to the state?
I was always under the understanding that that was something that the city was supposed to review at renewal of their license. It's not monitored that I'm aware of. I mean, I know there's somewhere it says it's got to be 50%, but I think that's a city ordinance, not a state ordinance.
So Jason, with the Pizza Ranch, why'd you do a beer and wine instead of a full liquor like maybe the Applebee's?
Well, we're a little more of a family-type restaurant than maybe the Applebee's. I mean, it's more of a, adult kind of eat-out place. I mean, you can take your family there, of course. The company, Pizza Ranch itself, is a really family-oriented company. They don't even really like us to serve beer, but we are one of very few pizza ranches that do actually serve beer.
Okay.
We just, in our research, people like to have beer with pizza, I guess, so that's why we went that way, so.
Because obviously your food sales would have merited having a full.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, we're at about 1% beer sales to food sales, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Colleen, Mr. Kessel, is there a way to determine what that split is between food and drink in some of these establishments? And if so, what is it?
There would be a way to do that. If it's available from the state, we can get that information. I'm not aware that the city collects that information other than having license holders verify when they apply for an application.
Using sales tax information to verify the 50% from the state would be difficult. The state has been very reluctant in the past to release data like that because you can extrapolate sales and other things from it. The individual restaurants and such do have to report that number to the state, so we can ask for it. But the 50% requirement is a local ordinance, not a state ordinance.
How do we enforce it then, if we don't have the means or the information?
We do ask upon, as Attorney Colling has stated, we do ask for that information annually. And it is basically an honor system at this point. We expect that they're being truthful when they answer the question.
Would anybody else like to speak to the issue?
I'm Shirley Ducart, and I want to talk as a realtor. I think you need to establish a price, and then after that, a minimum price, and then after that, whether they bid it or not, that's up to you. But in the past, what we have done is we placed a value of $150,000 on the liquor license on an on-off. And in order to sell a property, I think we need to have an established price. Like Jason did, if he got it for $125,000, good for him. But I don't think that another business place should have to sell their license, because when they go out of business, or if they're selling their business at that point, it's going to be very hard to sell their business if they don't have their on-off license. What will happen then is we only put the value on their actual building. You don't really, a name, you can give a name on but that doesn't, it's kind of like blue sky. So I would recommend you have a limited price of $150,000 and then go up from there if you want to do it a bidding or however. And I don't think anybody should be excluded, and even a new business, because new businesses bring in new employees and new income tax and new sales tax. I don't think any one of these businesses we have right now are hurting for business, because wherever you go, you stand in line and you wait to get your, whether you're buying liquor, if you're buying food, or if you're just going into an establishment. But just for the sake of selling in the future, I would prefer, and I think all the realtors would agree with me, that there should be an established price, and then however you go from there, it's fine.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment?
Greetings, Commissioners. My name's Kelly Armstrong. I'm here representing Armies and Budget Liquor. I guess a couple things just to start, and one, I would love to help you with it. If it's a local ordinance for 50% sales of food versus alcohol, I don't know why that 50% that isn't alcohol couldn't be something else, say, for example, bowling. I mean, if 50% of your business is being generated from something other than the sale of alcohol, I don't know what the distinction between serving food at a restaurant and serving funny shoes and a bowling ball at a bowling lane is. So I think there may be avenues in order for Classic Lanes to tweak existing ordinances to more suit the flavor of the community and the flavor of the business. I personally just don't see any distinction if over 50% of your business is from something else. I mean, I don't necessarily want to see Kelly's Ice Cream Parlor and Shot Store, but I mean, it's a bowling alley, and they compete directly with one who has a full-service bar and restaurant just down the street. I tend to agree with most of what was said before, in that I think the number is going from 15,000 people to 18,000 people, and you can cookie cut it however you want, but you're not adding one liquor license, you're adding two, the way that all three of the draft ordinances are. You're going from 15 to 17. In any one of the three proposals, you're going from 15 to 17. That's adding two. It's not just adding one. The Evil Olive is immediately losing significant restraints that were in place with the ordinance when they purchased the building and when they started it. That liquor license has obtained instant value comparatively the minute this ordinance passes, because it's no longer attached to the Queen City Club, which is a very large building and is a very specific set of business plan that could even possibly begin to try and make that place work. And instead it becomes completely transferable within the entire city of Dickinson. So it's going from 15 to 17. We can talk about it however we want, but that's +2, not +1. Second, if Walmart, Captain Jack's, or Borrowed Bucks wanted to be here, they'd be here. They'd be here already. They wouldn't be coming to the city asking for a new ordinance. They would have bought a business. There are businesses for sale. There are businesses, depending on what your view is for sale very reasonably, and there are businesses for sale in which the significant value of their business is truly their liquor license. So I don't think by opening it up to a bid process, that's where you run your risk of having Captain Jack's or Borrowed Bucks or somebody show up here. I think if they wanted to be here, they'd be here now. Third, if one of these three proposals is chosen, I've gone through all three of them, and is usually my opinion with anything. I think, first of all, I think the first one is far and away the best. I think when you get into fairness and you...
Excuse me, when you say the first one, is that the license by proposal, awarded by bid?
It's my first one. It's the one that's awarded by straight bid. I think that takes away all the fairness questions, and it takes away a lot of interesting things, which I will get into in a second. But I did have, and I know these are draft ordinances, and I think this one kind of fits the tone and tenor of what was probably envisioned when placing a new one. I think Mr. Colling had a fairly difficult task in drafting the other two, especially drafting the other two in a way that doesn't make it fairly ambiguous as to what you're trying to accomplish when you're going to bid for a liquor license. The first one kind of cuts that all out in that, I'm just going through, I would say I think 15, and I know it says at least 15-day notice, given the sparsity of time between when you are going to add, I mean, the way this is written, it's at 21,000. Now, God willing, that's next year, but more likely than that, it's going to be somewhere down in the future. I think a 15-day notice is a fairly short period of time for people to put together proposals. I also think it's a fairly short period of time for the city to ensure that they meet the requirements of 4.08.1, which is going to be required before any bid they submit is even accepted, because they have to be eligible people for a liquor license. I agree, and I'm not here to say what it should be worth or what it isn't, but I think you do need a minimum bid. Without it, there's really no need for a sealed bid. Just have your auction. Have as many people show up as possible, or as many people that want one, and start the auction off. Because otherwise, without a minimum bid, and if there's a minimum bid, if there's no minimum bid, and I know I can go to the auction and just improve, my bid's going to be $10, because I'm just going to show up and wait and see what happens the day of it. That takes money out of the city's pocket. The other thing it does from a city's position is if you have a minimum bid and you have significant time for people to submit their proposals, you know they're properly financed, you know they're serious about doing it, and you cut down on the number of people who are throwing their name into the hat. It's only people who are, again, properly capitalized and are serious about doing it. With number 5 on that, it's a technical thing, but hey, my day job's a lawyer. I really wish that instead of determined by city staff, that it said meet the requirements of 4.08.10. 4.0810 in the city code is what minimum requirements you have to make in order to get a liquor license. If you meet those minimum requirements, you should be eligible for the bid. If you don't have a minimum bid, I could see something like the top 3 bids have the right to improve their bids or something of that nature, but outside of that. And with a minimum bid, if only one person wants it, that's what it's going for. If 2 people want it, who knows what it's going for? I mean, that's the whole auction process. Personally, and I know why it's in here, I hate paragraphs like number 10, because it basically says 1 through 9 don't really count. They say they do, except at the sole discretion of the city commission, we can make it not count. I think those get a lot of people into a lot of trouble. And then one other thing, and this actually, quite frankly, would be much better for any bar business if it stayed exactly the way it is. However, in good conscience, I can't say that. Number 11, where it has 1 year, and as some of you are all too familiar with, I'll just use the Elks Building as an example. Sometimes things go completely beyond your control. And I mean, there should at least be a mechanism for somebody who is building, I mean, I'll use Ms. Riddle, for example. If she's building a 10,000 square foot structure, something completely beyond her control at some point in time in that process could keep her from opening that thing in 365 days. I would guess as a planning and zoning board and as a city commission, you have seen things like that, which for good cause would be that. They should at least be allowed due process and allowed a hearing before the city before it immediately reverts away from them. Y'all can be as strict as you want on them, but they should have a chance to come explain it. If they're going to spend money on a liquor license, spend money on an investment project, and because I'm guessing most people who open a bar aren't going to be the contractors who are building it. The second one, which is I'll call it the hybrid, or is it the new class of liquor license? I don't really understand it, which concerns me. One of the things that I think is problematic is, this is an ordinance and it says, it is the intent of this provision that the city of Dickinson desires to control the issuance of additional liquor licenses and restrict any artificial appreciation in their value. And from my understanding of reading this, this means any transfer of the liquor license would revert back to the city. Well, I can use a couple examples, which I don't necessarily know would be the case, but I know there's Bernie's children work at his bar. I don't know how his corporate structure is. I know the manager at our bar has an ownership interest which changes over time. Is it upon the sale of the bar to another person? Is it when a minority owner becomes all of a sudden a majority owner? I mean, transfers don't always happen in one. I don't just sell my bar to somebody else. I mean, especially if you're not the owner-operator and you have good people working for you, our family working for you. At some point in time, I might be the 51% owner of Armies instead of my father. And right now I'm 0%, just so everybody knows that. But, I mean, at that point in time, would the liquor license revert back to the city? Or would it stay with me? I mean, do you get benefit by doing it 10% every year for 5 years? Or at some point in time, does it go away and it reverts back? And then all of a sudden I own a bar and I have to come back to the city and buy a liquor license. You still have to meet all the requirements from the state and all of those things, but it's problematic for how that is written. And then the last one, and this one's where the 2 weeks really gets to be problematic, and that's where you submit your proposal to the city. 2 weeks is a very short period of time for me to hire a private investigator and background all city commissioners and all city staff to figure out what proposal I can give that will have me the best chance of getting it. And that's really what you're asking. You're asking that we present something not necessarily for the general public, but for a group of people to say, yes, I agree with this. And it's not necessarily a group of people who's involved in the industry and understands. It's also not necessarily a group, and it's a very truncated period of time. The other thing is, there's nothing in this ordinance that says you have to follow that proposal. I have 365 days to build whatever my proposal was, and on the 364th day, I don't care if I had the most grandiose proposal in the world. What if I open a liquor store? What if I just open budget 2? I mean, there's nothing in here that penalizes it. There's no mechanism for what is substantial compliance, what isn't substantial compliance. It's a very problematic an ordinance to enforce, especially considering that we're talking about a 50% local ordinance and nobody can seem to answer that question. And in fairness to that, I'm almost positive there's not a bar restaurant in town that's doing more than 50% in alcohol. But that's just a really educated guess. But those second 2 ordinances seem to be incredibly problematic to me, both as somebody who's involved in the industry and somebody who's involved in potentially throwing mud at those ordinances at some point in time down the road. So those are just kind of the brief things I have to say. I would take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Mr. Armstrong, thank you for reviewing those. You bring up some good points, absolutely. Of the draft here for the awarded by bid process, in, what is it here? Where it has the additional on-off sale license procedure for granting, and they talk about it being an on-off sale restricted license. Okay. It goes on to say the on-off sale restricted license will be available and be issued only to individuals or partnerships. So with the intention of the way it's stated here, what about, this would exclude, like you talked about, the Walmarts and major corporations and so on, if they are corporations. What about LLCs?
I'm not quite sure I'm not sure how everybody's set up right now, but.
Well, we're talking about a new license here, so, I mean, with the way it's stated here, and I'm not asking it, whatever, but I would interpret, you know, for protection, like a lot of people are concerned about from the Walmarts and the Captain Jacks coming in, I would interpret that would restrict them from coming in for this license if you know, where it's issued only to individuals or partnerships, while Walmart and Captain Jacks are not.
And
is that the way you would interpret it?
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if it would be an oversight or not, but I think LLCs almost have to be. I mean, it seems fairly weird not to have them incorporated into it, considering most people who start any business venture at this point in time, or most people I know, I shouldn't say most people, start an LLC. They're very simple to do. They have significant protections, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Colling can answer that.
Mr. President, if I may, that specific language is only in the draft ordinance that provides for a new class of license that reverts back to the city. And the intent there is that that license is tied to an individual or a partnership, because that's time limited. That person is eventually going to die, a partnership is eventually going to dissolve when one of the partners is no longer a partner. But that particular class of license would not be available for a corporate entity that may have a perpetual existence. So LLCs, corporations would not be eligible to apply for and receive that license.
But then I guess I have a question. Would that be the only class of that license? There'd be a class of one?
Yes.
And so...
I think the intent would be, with that license, is that any new on-off sale license would be issued as that class. So any 3,000 person jump in population that's the on-off sale license that would be available.
But it still does, I mean, that's fine if that's the intent. It still doesn't solve the problem of a small family-run business who does it for 25 years and their son wants to take it over, or I mean, their manager, who's been there for 25 years, wants to take it over, which is kind of the tradition, or shall I say, at least a majority of, or a significant minority of businesses in this town and in this area.
That's correct, and that new class of license does not provide for intergenerational
On a
transfer.
51%, 49%, it would change. It would revert back to the city.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Armstrong? Thank you very much.
Sorry for armchair quarterback.
Anybody else care to comment on the liquor license issue? Okay. As I said, we're going to do this at least one more time. We want to hear from everybody that we can. In the end, we have two decisions to make, and the first one is whether or not we issue the license. And then if we do, how will we do so? Any commissioners have anything else to say right now? Okay, we want to thank everybody that gave us input and be watching for this next hearing. Thanks very much. We will move to our 6:15 timetable agenda item, which is the consideration of the final plat of the State 4th Edition. We actually have two things to consider here. First is the approval of the plat itself, and then we will open a public hearing for the rezoning that accompanies that plat. I would ask if there's anybody that, in the audience, that wants to speak to the plat itself. Anybody that wants to speak to the plat? Any commissioners have any question or comments on the State 4th Edition plat? If not, we need a motion to approve or not approve. Let's see, which resolution number are we talking here? Anybody know?
26.
I'm sorry.
26.
26-2010.
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Ron Michael, is this for the East Industrial Drive?
No, this is State 4th Edition plat
Okay.
on the west end of town.
On the west end, okay, very good.
Mr. Chair. Move to approve resolution number 26-2010.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, we will move to public hearing concerning the rezoning, and we'll declare that public hearing open. Let's see, Mr. Soren, do you want to summarize what we're doing with rezoning in this plat?
Yes, Commissioner Jackson, fellow commissioners, the State 4th Edition, Block 3, when you look at it, lots 1, 2, and 3 are very large lots. They are being proposed as an R3 development, and currently it's zoned R1. Also in that block, you've got lots 4 through 9, which is along the extension of 2nd Street, is also R1, and those lots are being proposed as an R2. The remainder of that subdivision is being left as an R1, so it's the Block 3 is the rezoning request right now. With lots 1, 2, and 3 right now, there's planned for 2 apartment complexes in the neighborhood of 24 to 30 units. Haven't actually seen the plans, but those are in front of us as we speak right now. So that's the intent with the rezoning of this subdivision.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the rezoning issue, either for or against the rezoning in the State 4th Edition? Anybody like to speak to the rezoning? Any commissioners have any comments?
Mr. Commissioner, clarification, Mr. Shorten, lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the corner there, Is that the location of the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management?
Yes, it is.
1, 8, 9, and 10. Not
Seven,
Actually,
eight,
seven.
that's a seven.
7? It would make sense, yeah.
Excuse me.
The area with the vacated street through it is where the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service building sits.
Any more comments on this rezoning issue? We'll declare the public hearing closed. We're looking for a motion to, for the first reading of this ordinance. Ordinance number
1387.
Ordinance number 1387, which addresses the
Mr.
rezoning in
Chairman,
the State Fourth Edition.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number, or the first reading of 1387.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the motion carries. Let's see here. We are very close, I think, close enough to the 6:30 timetable agenda item, which is a similar item for final plat and public hearing for rezoning of the Johnson addition. So we'll first ask if there is anybody in the audience who wishes to make a comment on the plat itself. Yes, please come forward. State your name and...
Good evening. My name is Paul Johnson, and I'm the one that's putting it together and for a shop, electrical shop. That's what I'm using the property for. And if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Just a comment, Mr. Johnson, and you're rebuilding this because in the July 8th tornado, you lost your current facility, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I should back us up a little bit. I should have asked Mr. Soren to present this plat. Is there anything, Mr. Soren, that you want to summarize for us on the plat itself?
It is located on the south end of town along Highway 22. We have went through the plat through planning and zoning, several meetings in regards to this. The last issue that we dealt with was the 12th Avenue Southeast issue on the north side of the property. He does have the 33 feet for half of that street. We'll be capturing the other 33 feet when the property to the north of it gets developed to assure access to the west of this lot. It is agriculturally zoned area right now, and through the platting process, the desire and what was approved was rezoning to a general commercial. And with that, that's the recommendations planning and zoning have made to the City Commission.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that wishes to talk about this plat? Johnson addition. Anybody else? Any other questions for Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Johnson, you stated that this is a replacement of destroyed property. Where was the original property?
I was over on 325 6th Street Southeast.
Okay.
Is where it was. And
what kind of business are we talking about?
I'm an electrical contractor.
Electrical. Okay.
And I do 95% of my work or better is in the oil field.
What kind of reaction do you get from the residential's owners in that area?
They didn't have a problem. There was a question as far as where would I be entering my property from, and one lady from the south said that there was because what we're proposed to buying and stuff is a L-shaped thing, and so the immediate people right next door was they didn't have a problem, but the other one was wondering about coming in from on her road or whatever to the south end of my property, and I said we've got it on the plat and everything that we're coming in from the north side, so no problem there.
So there's no interference in the residence?
No, there is not.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
We are looking for a motion for disposition of the plat itself.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the final plat,
This would be
Johnson
Resolution
addition?
27-2010.
27-2010.
Do we have a second?
I'd second it.
Any more discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion carries. With that, we will now open the public hearing for the rezoning attached to the Johnson addition. And Mr. Soren, again, summarize that. This zoning change will be to what?
It is currently zoned agricultural. The zoning petition is to go to a general commercial, which will allow the shop for the electrical company that he's planning to construct in that area. Once again, planning and zoning did hold public hearings and notified surrounding properties regarding this change, and they are recommending approval of the rezoning of this lot.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment on the rezoning of the Johnson subdivision, Johnson addition? Anybody wish to comment, either for or against? Okay, we will declare the public hearing closed, and we're looking for a motion for the first reading of ordinance 1388, it looks like, huh?
Mr. President,
Please.
move to approve first reading of ordinance 1388.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? Anything?
Mr. Johnson, is he still there? Are you going to use the property all yourself, or are you going to be incorporating other businesses in that in those 2 acres?
Come on up, Mr. Johnson, if you would.
At the present time, I plan to use it all myself. The reason that we went with the L kind of shape thing was that I've got a couple semis, van trailers, and I wanted to keep that away from the public eye so much, so we kind of thought we'd hide it around the backside of the trees and stuff was the purpose of the L shape there.
Okay.
And there is a deal in there too for a, what they call a buffer zone, so that when we switch from residential to commercial, there's 30 feet in there that I'll be planting some trees in and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shorin, is that an acceptable buffer?
Yeah, our current zoning ordinance does require a 30-foot buffer between a general commercial and a residential zoning district.
And trees qualify, or just distance?
It's the distance. There is a requirement within it regarding trees and/or fence, some sort of screening. But we did discuss that, and when the development plans come for it, he's aware of the buffer and will ensure that that gets taken care of.
Very good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, we will move to the non-timetable agenda. Again, item number 6, in Public Works, we have a couple of plats to look at. First plat is the RV's View subdivision. Mr. Soren, can you introduce that for us?
The RV's View subdivision formerly was the Crimmins subdivision, and I think I had spoke about that previously, but it's the same parcel of land. It is a 78 acres, 79 acre tract, about a mile west of the city, north of Highway 10, with the expectation to build a home on the one lot. The other lot, they're just platting as part of the process to go through. The home that's planned to be built is on the lot 1 on the back part. There is no zoning change to this, as they wish to keep it agricultural. They did, as part of the plat, dedicate a 33-foot private road easement for access along the north part, as well as dedicated right-of-way on the east side along the section line of this Planning and Zoning has reviewed this, and we're recommending approval of the final plat of the RV's View subdivision.
Thank you. With that, we'll ask if there's anybody from the public that wishes to comment on the plat. Nobody from the public? Any commissioners? Any comments or
Mr.
questions?
Chairman, on the proprietor's certificate, Mr. Shorn, it's got Nevada Crimmins and then a series of question marks. Do we have other interested parties that are involved with this particular plat?
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't get you the updated one in the packet. We did get that corrected. The owner of Lot 2, Nevada Crimmins owns Lot 1, and Lot 2 is, I believe it's Roger Valesky, thus the RV's View subdivision name, owns Lot 2, and we did get that corrected in the proprietor certificate.
And you said it was all going to remain in agricultural?
Yes.
Then why plat it?
Right now, we require if you want to build a home on less than 40 acres, it's required to be platted first. And the 26-acre tract is where they're planning to build a home.
Then why wouldn't it be on a 40-plus rather than break it into 26 and 52 acres? If he just wants to build a home, he could have done it on the 40 acres, on 40 acres. But why the division then?
I don't know the details of the purchase agreement.
Walt Smith with Cattersley and Jackson, the client for this I'm representing. Mr. Crimmins owns the back, or the west 25 to 7 acres. Up front is owned by the other gentleman, so he was trying to plat the 20-some-odd acres to the west just to put a house out in the middle of it. He still wants to grow crops around the outside of it, but that was the only way, owning the 27 acres, he could build a home on it, is to plat it. Or he wouldn't have platted it if he didn't have to.
So what's going to happen to the 52 acres?
He's already got a shop out on the northeast corner of that. I could not tell you what he's got planned for that. Right now, he's got no plans for it. He's just platting it as part of the process, I believe, to have it platted in case there's future plans with it. But I've heard no plans from him on the eastern portion of that.
Thank you. I'm getting a little concerned about the spot zoning situation here. I'd like to be able to accommodate residents, but I'm kind of concerned about just putting the plat out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I'm sure we'd be all for changing the ordinance so they didn't have to plat it, just because it's less than 40 acres. I mean, that's the only reason he did it is to make everyone here happy, not to, he just wants to build a house, and if he could have done it on 27 acres of ag, he definitely would have and not wasted our time or his money.
But still, I'm concerned about the 52 acres sitting out of his control and not knowing what's going to happen with it.
I understand your concerns.
Any more comments or questions? What are your wishes? This would be Resolution 28, 2010, it looks like. Right?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the final plat for RV's View subdivision 28-2010.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
No.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We will move to agenda item 6B, which is the final plat of the I-94 Industrial Park, second subdivision located east of town. Mr. Soren, can you introduce that for us?
Yes, this is a subdivision in the east industrial park. It'd be east on Highway 10, directly east of West Plains Implement. The section line on this plat is the border between the current plat and West Plains Implement. The The owner of this, or that Lot 1, Block 1, is an unplatted portion of land right now. Through the platting process, they're platting that lot and changing the configurations of Lot 1, Block 2, and a portion of Lot 2 is Block 2 as well. That street that runs through that subdivision currently turns and goes south and connects to the section line. As you can see through this proposal, they're turning it back to the west and teeing in at the section line, and then developing a street along the section line, with the expectation that they'll be able to access Highway 10 along that section line instead of taking the street back to the northeast. The zoning on this plat is, or this subdivision is currently LI. They're not asking to change that. Through the process of planning and zoning and public hearings, they're making the recommendation that we approve this plat as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Soren. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this plat? Please state your name and...
Ron Michael. I own property close to this, and I just wanted to make sure that all these roads stay public access and nothing turns into private.
Which roads are you specifically concerned about?
894 East Industrial, or East Industrial Drive. So that goes right in front of us.
Can you help us, Mr. Soren?
He owns Lot 5. I believe your father owns Lot 4.
Yes.
Directly to the east of Block 2 along the street. I believe early on in this process, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some discussions at the start of the platting that we'd get rid of that street. They would make some access changes and things of that nature. And I believe the discussion maybe was brought up about making them private roads, and that's where the concern comes. Through the platting process, though, we did require them to bring that street through to the section line and provide a street along the section line as well, which are dedicated as public right-of-way in this plat.
And what standards will the roads need to be built? Are they to city standards and curb gutter or dirt road county standards? How does this one go?
Well, currently, we're going to require a paved road. The subdivision out here doesn't have curb and gutter in it. Okay. Currently, I do believe in some discussions that there was talk about the section line, him putting a curb and gutter in, but we haven't got to the details of that at this point.
Okay.
So if it's a public road and it's paved, then that's
fine. I was just concerned. There was talk about, like you said, taking the road out, and I didn't want that. The road's been there since it's been built, so I hate to see it get changed.
You got it.
So I was just more concerned with it. I don't have any objections to this idea, so I just wanted to make sure that the road did stay public and that any incurred costs go to
the developer.
To the developer, so that no increased specials or anything like that.
Okay.
The road is public as platted, but you do understand that the alignment will change from what it is now.
How do you mean?
The location of that street is going to change.
Right,
from where
but
it is
not
now.
in front of.
But it will be public.
Right, right.
Okay.
But it won't change in front of your property. It'll
Right,
change.
Right. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, any questions or comments on this plat? Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm still a little confused, Mr. Shorten. There's a street that runs from the southwest to the northeast, and there's a little leg in there. Are we talking about that being a public paved street at this point?
I think, Mr. Soren, correct me if I'm wrong, what we would need to do, and what I would suggest we do, is approve the plat contingent on the developer building that street to whatever standards we set. So in other words, the motion would be something to the effect that the plat would not be filed until that street is constructed and paved, or as an alternative, the owner providing some financial guarantee that that construction would take place.
That'd satisfy me if that was in place.
Am I saying that correctly, Mr. Soren?
Yes, I think that's...
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we need a motion, and if you agree, the motion would need to include that contingency on the construction of the street.
I would make that motion to consider the approval with the consideration, with the contingency. And this is 29-210, is that where we're at?
Is that,
29-210, it looks like. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Any further discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 6C. Mr. Soren?
On July 21st, we opened the bids for the 2010 Seal Coat project. There is a map in your packet that shows the area that we're seal coating this year. Aztec, who has done our project for the past couple of years, was the low bidder with the bid of $338,513, compared to an engineer's estimate of $374,782. We did have two other bidders, Northern Improvement and Bituminous Paving. They were both in the upper $450,000 range. With Aztec being the low and the work that they've done for us, we're recommending that we award this project to Aztec for the 2010 seal coat.
Thank you. What are your wishes, gentlemen?
Question, Mr. Commissioner.
Please.
Mr. Shorn, where is Aztec Corporation located?
Hortonville, Minnesota.
So we would need a motion approving the award of bid to Aztec.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to approve the 2010 Seal Coat project as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We will move to Public Works, item 7A. Who's going to introduce that topic? Mr. Kessel.
Chairman Jackson, we have shared the hat of Public Works Director with several people, so tonight I'll be wearing it for the next few minutes. The first item that we have is the 2010 stationary generic generator maintenance contract. Denny's Electric is the low bidder. They have held this contract for 2 years previous. This would be another contract for 2 years. The dollar value of the contract is similar to what it was last year. We did add a lift station generator to the list, so there is an increase, but that increase is mostly due to the addition of that generator. There is another slight increase related to inflation and such, but we are recommending that the City Commission approve the contract as presented.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve the contract to Denny's Electric.
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Move to agenda item 7B. Mr. Kessel? I think we discussed this particular issue at our last meeting.
This item this evening is a fee schedule resolution that would increase the amount we charge for our water vendor. We are currently charging $5 per thousand, so it is a rather substantial fee increase. We have had a spike in water usage at the water vendor in July. We are well over 1 million gallons issued. Our surrounding, if you want to call it competition, this would put us on par with what that competition charges. The city of Killdeer no longer can issue water due to they've met their amount of water that they could issue has already been issued. So the other ancillary benefit may be, of course, these water trucks use our water vendor located on the south side of town, and they have to get there in some way. So these are obviously quite heavy trucks when they leave that building, and would, if there is a decline in use, it may not be to the total detriment of the city of Dickinson. So the resolution includes an increase to 15,000 per gallon. I'd also like to add to that resolution a line that would implement the fee as of September 1, so that we can notify users that the fee increase will occur upon that date.
Okay. This would be Resolution 30-2010, I believe.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lamboom?
Mr. Kessel, have you checked with City of Stanley or Newtown as to what their rates are?
We did do a review of other vendors. There is a new one being built by Southwest Water. I wasn't able to obtain that. The two that we did check, the rates were 15 and another was 20 or 21. I'm sorry I didn't bring that with me, but it was higher than what we would be proposing here.
Mr. Chairman, some of the indications I have from the field indicate that that the price of water is escalating, and I think that $15 per thousand may be too low. I'd rather see something in the $20, $25 per thousand gallons if Dickinson was to expand its fee.
And Mr. Kessler, you indicated that Newtown charges $25 per thousand and Mandaree charges $20 per thousand in the notes that I'm looking back at.
Yeah, those are the two that we did check on.
And we're currently $5.
Correct. We are currently $5 a thousand.
Mr. Kessel, Mr. Soren, I believe, is there not a water supply about to go online at Dodge, I believe, from the Southwest Pipeline?
That's correct. That's the one I referred to earlier, that I don't know the rate that they're going to charge at that location.
That could affect the usage in Dickinson, I suspect.
How did you arrive at your $15 figure?
It's increasing the fees by 3 times. We are cognizant of the fact that that's a substantial increase. Certainly, if the commission chooses to go higher, that would be acceptable to city staff, that's for sure.
Sure.
And certainly, as the Dodge facility opens, we could monitor usage the next 3-4 months here and address this again.
Yeah, I think if we triple it now with the option of raising it later and see what happens with the Dodge facility, that we're still covering our bases on it.
We will be submitting a fee resolution as part of the budget process, so it would allow time to monitor this usage, and we could incorporate another fee increase if the commission desires at that time.
Okay. Well, I would make the motion that we adopt resolution number 30, 2010 as it is, with the date specified, September 1st, and we still have the option of moving it up later after we see what happens.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second to the motion. More discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
rather than just try and leapfrog our way through this thing, knowing that what development or potential development is looking like over in western Stark County, I still think that we probably better off making a higher demand for our water at this point, and that we look at that, like I said, $20 to $25 per thousand. And unless you want to make a date certain where we review this, that maybe in 6 months, that I might find acceptable at this point, though I think $15 is still too low.
Other discussion?
I have a comment after the vote. It doesn't affect the vote.
Mr. Landblum, you could offer an amendment to the motion if you care to, or, I don't know. Unless you're satisfied waiting a few months here, and
I would amend Mr. Altman's motion and to state that 6 months would be March 1st. That we review that rate again on March 1st of 2011.
Sean, you said it would be reviewed before then, though, even, didn't you?
I'm suggesting that if you chose to, you could add a increase as part of the budget process when we propose the fee resolution at that time, which would mean a much quicker implementation than 6 months.
Then 6 months, and that way we get to see, if we pass it as it is right now and we do that, then we can see what the immediate impact is. We can see the Dodge facility, and in a shorter amount of time than 6 months, we can be reactive to the situation and make sure that we're covering our bases and charging the right fee.
I think we need to dispose of the amendment. Mr. Landblum has moved to amend the motion. Do we have a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. More discussion on the amendment?
Well, if it's thought that 6 months might be too long, what would be the alternative? You said that at the financial review.
If we use the fee resolution that'll be proposed during the budget process, the implementation would be in probably October or early November rather than waiting until March. If we do use or want to use a period to study the effect of this increase, we might want to move the effective date up to August 16th as opposed to September 1st, just to allow for a bigger window. You might have 6 weeks of time then to study the effect.
If you can say that we can guarantee that we'll review this thing again on October 1st, or by October 1st, I'll withdraw my amendment.
Sean, so when people fill up, we bill them just like our water bill. And so even if we enact this on August 16th, immediately triple the amount, they're still going to pull up, they're still going to get billed, they're just going to get a bigger bill at the end
Correct.
of the billing cycle.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose of notification, allowing a delayed implementation, is so that they're very well aware that the increase will take effect upon a certain date. And they can adjust their habits how they see fit.
Okay, Mr. Landblum has withdrawn his motion. Mr. Steiner, you're okay with that? With your second?
Second.
You're okay with withdrawing that second in the motion?
Yeah?
Okay. All right, we're back to the original motion.
I have a procedural question. Is there, or not procedural, but a practice, is there any indication that there's bootlegging taking place off our fiber hydrants around the community?
Yeah, I guess I would defer that question to Chief of Police Rommel. I've not heard reports myself, or Fire Chief Sivak.
None that we know of.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sivak is telling us that there is none that he knows of. Okay, we're back to the original motion, which is the September 1st date and $15. Any more discussion?
I'm not going to approve or withdraw anymore.
But Sean, now you wanted to change the date to August 16th, right? So do I need to amend my motion to August 16th rather than September 1st?
You go ahead.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the original motion to August 16th. Is that right? Do we have a second to that amendment?
in lieu of Mr. Steiner's unwillingness to second, I will.
Okay, any more discussion on the amendment? If not, we'll vote on the amendment. Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We'll vote on the original motion now, unless there's any more discussion on the original motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, just one item that I would like added to a future meeting regarding it, and it does tie into this here, that I've been approached as the amount or the increase in traffic volume due to the water trucks coming in and so on. One of the concerns was they're coming around and going over to State Addition and heading north through State Avenue, I should say, and going north through town there. One of the concerns or issues was, is there anything that we can do to make them take the loop around town for increased safety and so on? I think we need to discuss that at a future date.
I'd agree with you on that one.
Mr. Soren, can we have you talk to us about that?
Yes, a couple comments right now. One of the things we are doing is looking at alternatives. Could we put a vending station on the north side of town so people wouldn't have to come through town, you know, somewhere up along 26th or 21st or somewhere in that area? That would help alleviate some of the traffic through the majority of town. We're already looking at some options that way. We do have, with the fire hydrants, the capability of putting meters on them, and we do that in certain instances for specific fill sites. I don't believe we have people that are going and just taking water out of them, but as a common practice. But we are looking at some alternatives to the situation of them going up State Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I also heard that there was even concern about whether that's a route that should be used by trucks. Maybe we can hear about that in the future. Okay, ready to vote? The original motion? Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll move to agenda item 8A, City Administrator's Report. Mr. Kessel.
Thank you. The first item is simply a thank you from the High Plains Cultural Center, rather self-explanatory. The second item is a discussion regarding staffing and hiring and turnover that we're experiencing within the city. We have not only had a great deal of retirements over the past 18 months, we've also had a significant amount of turnover in a few of our positions. Most specifically, those positions, or that turnover has occurred within our Public Works Department, and even more specifically, those positions which require a CDL, or commercial driver's license. We have 3 positions within our Public Works Department, entry-level positions that do require a CDL, one upon hire and this other upon 6 months. They have to have that CDL. There's issues, several issues related to that, of course. With the energy development that we're seeing in our areas, anybody who has a CDL is very sought after. They're recruited heavily by energy companies, and they can afford to pay a much higher wage than the city of Dickinson can. We would argue that we have a better benefit package and other benefits that energy companies cannot provide you. But nevertheless, wage is a pretty compelling issue for a lot of folks. Some of the other issues that we're dealing with is to get a CDL, just to take the test, it takes 2 months or more from schedule to taking. It's quite an extended period of time. We've considered bringing staff to Bismarck in order to take that test. That is happening among some of the energy companies already. They're using alternate sites to administer the CDL exam. Having said that, the police department, our police officer position also experiences a certain amount of turnover related to energy as well. What you have in your packets is a draft of an ordinance that I would like the commission to consider, an alternative that was discussed amongst our executive team to try and entice applications for the positions that I've mentioned, most specifically the public works ones at this time. We discussed several different methods of trying to gain applicants for our positions, because oftentimes it's difficult to do that alone. And one of the ways to do that was to offer a hiring bonus. The hiring bonus would be, as proposed, paid out over 3 installments within 1 year's time. $250 upon hire, $250 upon successful completion of their probationary period, and $500 upon successful completion of 1 year's employment. The idea is to not only gain more applicants, but have people retain their employment for over a year beyond the 6-month CDL issuance time that we have today. There's no guarantees that this would work, but it's certainly a tool that we would like to have available as we move forward. I think the bigger issue is simply pay, period. And I think it's something that the City Commission will, as you go through the budget period, you will notice that there is a pay and grade system that will increase salaries for our city staff. And they have not been rising at the rates of other cities or county, comparable county positions. And so I think it would be helpful if the commission considered the rate or the salary increases that you'll see before you during the budget period. But interimly, I'd like to at least discuss or propose a bonus system as presented in the ordinance. And I'll take any questions as they come.
Shall I look through, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, just to clarify, I suspect this is an ordinance that we may see a proposed ordinance change in the future, and tonight you just get a little, you'd like to get a little reaction.
Correct. I'm not asking for any movement on it tonight. That's correct.
Mr. Altman?
Okay. You had suggested $250 sign-on, 6 months, $250 into the first year, $500, so $1,000 sign-on bonus, essentially.
Yeah, and the second 250 is after successful completion of probation, which could be 90 days.
90 days?
As early as 90 days.
Okay. And are you suggesting that this bonus would be different based on the classification of employee that we hire as well?
All of the positions that we would be applying this to are operator positions. They are the ones that require the CDLs. So they are all in the similar pay grade. The reason that we used $1,000 is it essentially moves them up one pay step from their current offering. If they stay for the full year, it'll be like they were granted another step in that first year. I'm not proposing that we apply this to the police officer position initially, but that is a position that it may be applied to in the near future.
Same with city planner, public works?
No,
that's nothing for that.
No, I'm glad you asked that, Commissioner Altman. This would be very specific to the positions where turnover is high, or that we're not getting significant applications to have good choices. Those being three operator positions within our Public Works Department and the possible addition of a police officer position down the road. So it'd be very specific to just a few of our positions, not all.
Is that going to create any discord among the other employees that are in different categories?
We did talk about that very issue, and some of the alternatives that were discussed, such as simply raising the initial wage of those positions was discussed. That was felt to increase the amount of discord. We ticked off about 3 or 4 different choices before landing upon this one, and thought that this would cause the least amount of discord amongst current employees, because it doesn't change base pay. It is a one-time payment, that would be paid over the course of a year in 3 installments.
If we were to look at a change in our pay scale, as you alluded to, how long would that take to implement?
Normally, if we implement it during the time frame of the budget, it would be January 1st of 2011. Certainly, the Commission has the option to implement it earlier than that, but of course, revenue would have to support that level of a change.
And where would the finances come for the bonus?
Right now, we have the ability within our system to pay some bonuses. We've had as I said, significant turnover, we budget for those salaries to be there all year long. When you have turnover and go without for a certain period of time, you're not paying those salaries out. So we feel like we could pay a certain amount of bonuses with our current budget status.
When you're not paying those salaries out, are you paying overtime for other employees to step in and still fill the job load, though?
You are in certain circumstances, yes.
So a benefit to the current employees is less turnover and more stability in their own job as well.
That's certainly what we're hoping for, that they'll have somebody consistent that they can work beside for at least a year, hopefully more, and can share the workload then on a consistent basis.
Okay.
I guess my thoughts are that, you know, if we think this is a useful tool, I'd certainly be open to trying it. I think the more important question is that we're really watching what's happening around us with wages. Every business in this town is seeing that happen right now. It doesn't make any difference whether or not any of us like it. It's reality. So I think we really need to, in fairness, take a look at our own salary schedule and know where we are in the greater picture. Any other feedback on this issue for Mr. Kessel? Mr. Kessel, anything else for us right now?
I do have a couple other items that I'd like to, just announcements and such. The first one is tomorrow I am presenting at the County Commission our initial proposal for a joint powers agreement related to the planner position that the City Commission approved. I'm going to be requesting that we put together a panel of 6 to negotiate that joint powers agreement, that the city would appoint 3 people and the County Commission was due as well. So if you'd like to consider whom to appoint to that board, if you first of all like the idea of having a smaller body look at negotiating that joint powers agreement, my suggestion for the 3 would be Engineer Soren, myself, and Vice Chair Jackson.
You're not looking for action on that tonight necessarily.
We don't need that, no. The next item.
I think the idea of a smaller group is good, and we can certainly talk
I'd be
about
in favor of
those.
appointing Mayor Johnson as long as he's not here to disprove it.
That might be a great idea.
Sure, he'll get that information.
Mr. Kessel, anything else?
I think you're going to get one of these when he does return, Mr. Steiner. The North Dakota League of Cities Annual Conference is September 23rd to 25th. If any of you as commissioners are interested in attending, please let City Administrator Assistant Rita Binstock know. We'll make proper arrangements and make sure you get registered for that event. Also, the state is sponsoring some infrastructure meetings that are going to be held on August 5th. All of the commissioners are, of course, invited to attend from noon to 2. Be held at our library, so I just wanted to remind you of that date and time. That would conclude my report, unless there's any further questions. Thank you.
I'd certainly encourage new commissioners to attend a couple League of Cities meetings. Be good. Any questions for Mr. Kessel? Before we move to accounts payable, we may have missed something. Mr. Soren, I know you left us a copy of what I think are going to be some proposed subdivision regulations.
Yes,
Did you want to talk about that tonight?
I think all I had for tonight is I dropped it's 3 chapters of subdivision regs off for your review. Looking to come back at the next meeting with some discussion regarding those. We've been working on those for quite some time, and I just wanted to get them in your hands so you have a chance to read them, look through them, and bring back any questions, but hoping to get moving forward with them and get them finally adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soren. We'll move to accounts payable. Accounts payable have been provided to each of us. We need a motion to approve the accounts payable and the payroll.
So move.
I'll
A
second.
second. Any discussion? We will vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Landblum?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That motion carries. City commissioners have anything else that they'd like to
Mr. Chairman,
bring to the meeting tonight?
I laid on your desk a copy of what we called Creating Our Destiny from 2001 is an effort at strategic planning that the city or the greater Dickinson area conducted way back when. We had I think a measure of success with the expansion of the library, the development of the West River Community Center, this indoor swimming pool. I think it might be time that we revisited and updated this particular exercise. This is not to be confused with Destiny Dickinson, which was a real estate effort by the City Commission and the Chamber of Commerce. But it was an effort to develop a policy statement by the city and the citizens as to what they want to see Dickinson, or how does they want to see Dickinson grow, what they want to see and what they value, and as to what kind of direction that it will carry us. I think that as we get into the budgeting process and even our own planning process, that it might be worthwhile revisiting that now after a 10-year period.
Mr. Landblom, would it be incorrect to say that if we were to undertake a larger effort with comprehensive plan, that this could be part of that effort?
If you're looking at a comprehensive plan, yes, it could. I guess in lieu of making that major expenditure for a comprehensive plan, that I believe that this might have been a more reasonable financial approach to it. But it also, the way it was done last time, it was a community-wide, community involvement all throughout. And if you were to approach the comprehensive plan approach and the development plan, you know, there's different planning approaches that we can look at. I would try to integrate it then with the comprehensive plan if you were so, you know, so desiring at this point.
Well, thank you for bringing this up. I think the whole question should be discussed at least. I don't know where we really need to go with it, but in the coming weeks here, we're going to, I think, need to be discussing this and more related to it. Anything else from other commissioners? Anything from the public? Anybody wants to bring up from the public? Mr. Smith.
Yes, Walt Smith, Catterson, Jackson. Quick question regarding a prior approval with condition on the I-94 plat. What was that condition that we put on that approval, or that you put on that approval?
I think the intention is that that street is constructed to a standard provided by Mr. Soren and or the county prior to filing of the plat, unless agreement can be made for some other form of financial guarantee so that the plat can be filed and then lot sales can take place and whatnot. But we would want the financial guarantee that that street be constructed to whatever standard.
That property is in the county, correct?
It is.
So it should be built to county standards or per standards acceptable to the county, or is the city in charge of determining that? I'm just trying to clarify is all. I'm not arguing with you, but.
I think all of us would admit that's a little bit gray. So I would say to the standard that is agreed to by the road superintendent of Stark County and the city engineer, until we can get a better policy.
And that this road is to be constructed, or at least financially secured, prior to the plat being recorded?
That's right.
And what would make this particular subdivision different than any other one that's come across that this condition was not put on? For instance, the one right before it, the RV's View, which we've given them, you know, road right away there along the east side, but there was no stipulation put on that one as far as that road being constructed. I'm curious as to why this one is being singled out to be this road being constructed or at least financially secured prior to the recording. I'm just don't understand why this one is special, I guess.
The rest of you can jump in here. The way I would answer that question is we did have a couple of plats, was it 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I don't remember, that we did talk about doing the same thing. The plat was tabled.
But I believe these plats were talked about being annexed, is it, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe this property is being considered for annexation, or is it? Just curious.
This plat is not contiguous, I don't believe.
So the other plats that we talked about, the roads and all, I believe were. We were talking about the Knutson plat and the other ones adjacent to it, I'm sure.
You're right, there were, and I think...
And I would agree, depending on, you know, if you're going to annex them, that you need to make sure that things are going to be built the way you want them, and I'm just wondering why this one is sort of is an oddball out here that...
I don't think this will be the last one. This is different than the, what was it, the RV's
RV's view? Yes.
Yeah.
In that we had a section line there that would involve a number of property owners.
Correct.
Here we're talking about the interior street.
Okay, so just to be clear, this 350 feet of street is what we're talking about getting constructed to standard before he can go ahead and get his plat.
That was my
signed off on.
understanding.
Not,
Anybody else understand that differently?
Nope.
That was...
none of the rest, like the one along here, the run, this has nothing to do with it, correct?
If you recall, the RV subdivision is a half mile of dirt road from Highway 10 anyway, so we couldn't force anybody to pave it and then just have a piece of pavement from that little piece on the RV though.
This existing roadway that is a continuation of what we just platted is not paved, I don't believe, or is it? I could be mistaken.
It is paved.
This is paved up to where we're platting?
It goes all the way down to the interstate paved.
Okay, great.
So we're just asking for continuity on that.
No, sure, I understand. I guess I didn't realize that that portion of the road was already paved, and you're just trying to ensure that the rest gets paved and not left.
And Mrs. Smith, I can only speak for myself, but I think that in the future, any of the plats in the ETA, in the extraterritorial area, will be looking at a similar question at least.
Okay. I just want to be able to explain this to my client as to how come this particular one out of all of them, you're going to have to secure this for him. I just want to be able to give him a good explanation for that, which we'll give it a shot. And as far as your concerns on the other plat, the one RV's view, as far as what he's going to do with that 53 acres, I mean, if it's zoned as agricultural, really, there's not much he can do with it the way it's platted. Am I mistaken there, or I'm not sure I get your concern.
You're probably right at this point, but I just wanted to raise a concern about kind of a spot zoning mentality we have in this county, in this city, and I just wanted to, make a point that perhaps this is where we have to start looking at being a little more diligent about the way we approve these things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought originally we were only going to plat the back 23 acres or 27, whatever it is, and we got the other guy in just to make it easy and get it all platted at once, and actually I think you got 40 feet of road out of that, and that guy to the plat, so.
But if you just wanted residents out there, then why not just take the 40 acres and pluck it down?
I agree, he didn't need to plat to put residents out there, yeah.
Instead of dividing it into 52 or 53 acres and then,
Right. I think they just split the parcel. It was split ownership-wise. They simply platted it to get the lines in there and to get his house on.
And that's why my concern.
Gotcha. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate the question. Anybody else in the public? Any comments, questions? If not, we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Before you adjourn, if I may, as a rookie on this, an old rookie on this board here, I have had the opportunity to watch the videos, and I want to confirm that the video itself makes everybody look 10 pounds heavier, 10 years older, and about 3 inches taller.
I'm not sure what the point is, but I appreciate the comment.
That's good for...
We need a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Holtman.